Tropical storm Melissa struggling with wind shear, but expected to overcome that and strengthen to our next hurricane. But unfortunately, major impacts are expected in Hispaniola and in particular in Jamaica, where the storm could make a direct hit as we get later into the weekend. What's worse, if the storm manages to stay south of Jamaica, we could be looking at potentially one of the strongest Atlantic hurricanes on record, as a rare third Category 5 hurricane is very much possible this hurricane season. We're going to talk about the track of Melissa and the impacts and what the models are showing in this video. I appreciate you joining me here. Here's a look at what's going on across the Atlantic Basin. Really, the only system to worry about at this point is Melissa. The center is about halfway between Haiti and Colombia, where we have had flooding rains on the northern peninsula of Colombia. The storm has stalled. It raced off the African coast about 10 days ago, right across the southern lane here of the tropical Atlantic, moved through the Windward Islands, and now has slowed to a crawl as it deals with uncertain steering currents over the next several days. We're going to take a look at the current conditions with Melissa, and we do see the storm is now moving just to the west at 2 miles per hour. Most of us can walk a little bit quicker than what Melissa is traveling, and that is the where the center is. It's actually jogged around just a little bit as it continues to try to organize and form a more defined center. And the reason why is that it's dealing with wind shear and it's tilted with height. Where the center of the storm is located differs as you go above ground because of that wind shear, but eventually the wind shear will weaken and we will see the storm begin to become a lot more organized. The main threat over the next couple of days is going to be rainfall, especially across Hispaniola. There are mountainous areas of southern Haiti and southern Dominican Republic, which could see tremendous amounts of rain, as the storm is going to be in no hurry as it moves off to the west and eventually to the northwest. And eventually that heavy rain moves into Jamaica later on this week and into the weekend. We will continue to have heavy rain as well over adjacent portions of Colombia, Venezuela, and the ABC Islands. And then the future becomes a lot more difficult. You can see that the current forecast now brings this system just to the south of Jamaica, where we have a tropical storm watch in effect. And that will probably get upgraded later on to a hurricane watch. We do have a hurricane watch in effect for the southern portion of Haiti, as there's still some potential the storm could end up closer to the southwestern portion of Haiti and bring hurricane force winds to it by the time we get to the weekend. But the likelihood of this actually making a direct hit on Haiti as a hurricane is continuing to look less and less as the storm continues to trend more to the south and west. And by the time we get later into the weekend, the storm is likely to become a major hurricane, assuming it doesn't strike Jamaica first, as water temperatures are extremely warm here over the southwestern portion of the Caribbean Sea. Typically in October, they run warm. This year, they're running hotter than average. The fact that we haven't had a hurricane or a tropical system and we've had more than average sunshine is actually not helped. It's actually made conditions worse there. So we are going to watch this system very closely. The uncertainty in the forward speed doesn't add to any confidence, but what does make things a little bit clearer today is that the system is unlikely to turn northeast and cross Hispaniola this weekend and move out into the Atlantic. Unfortunately, it's going to be around quite a bit longer. Here's a look at how the forecast has evolved. This was the forecast yesterday, and you can see a lot closer to Haiti and Jamaica than where it is now. We've moved it along, and you can see that shift west during the forecast yesterday evening, and then overnight, the track taking it very close to Jamaica. And then this morning's forecast has adjusted farther to the southwest. And now we're seeing a track farther away from Jamaica, but stronger all the way up to major hurricane by the time we get to Monday morning. This does not mean the storm still can't strike Jamaica. It just means at least over the next 5 days, the trend has been farther off to the south and west. Good and bad news. The good news is that we aren't expecting devastating winds to strike Haiti or Dominican Republic, and probably not eastern portions of Jamaica with this track. Bad news, meaning the storm is going to have more time over hot water and can probably get a lot stronger. And my official forecast is stronger than the Hurricane Center's forecast. And I'll talk about why that is. They are up to 120 mile per hour at this point. That's a Category 3 storm that will be in 120 hours. But we're not going to see the storm strengthen a whole lot between now and Friday morning. In fact, it's probably going to struggle, and we'll go through it'll go through some tough times over the next couple of days, as wind shear will be slow to relax, but it is expected to relax by the time we get later into the day on Friday. And then as the storm moves west, it'll be over hot water. and will likely begin a period of what will be steady to perhaps rapid intensification. And that is a common theme in the major hurricanes that we've seen this year, rapid periods of intensification. We saw that back in August with Hurricane Aaron. We saw that again with Hurricane Humberto. We saw it with Gabrielle a little bit to the east of Bermuda. And here we go for the fourth time. We are likely going to have a major hurricane. Here's a look at why. If you take a look at the water vapor image, you can see that the storm does have a pretty good amount of outflow. You see these cirrus clouds that are allowing the system to begin to grow. Now, it is not allowed to grow much on the western side. There's dry air and there's more substantial westerly wind shear. As this system begins to move more to the north and west, though, that wind shear is expected to relax. There is a trough in here that is eventually going to lift out. It is not going to be strong enough to pull the center far enough to the north to be able to bring it across the islands and then out. And then that's that. Unfortunately, it's a catch and release situation where it's got it on the line, but unfortunately has to release it. And the fish gets back over water and it never gets caught. It just gets tugged a little bit northward. And when it does finally get a chance to move into this area and here, it is going to be in a prime environment to strengthen and may strengthen very quickly by the time it gets down there because of the fact that the wind shear is going to be extremely low. And you see the storm is definitely in better shape than it was this time yesterday. The winds haven't strengthened much and the pressure hasn't fallen, but structurally it's starting to get its act together, but it is still struggling. It's like it's gone on a diet. It's hit a bit of a plateau and hasn't lost weight this week. That doesn't mean it's not heading in the right direction. It just hasn't shown a lot of results, at least this week. But we have to give it a little bit more grace at this point. So the pressure has dropped to 1,000 millibars. So it is starting to organize a little bit better. But you can see that the center of the storm right now is, in fact, on the western side of where all the thunderstorms are. So it's still not a very structurally healthy storm at this point. And it's very clear that you can still see the westerly and southwesterly wind shear ahead of the system, which is keeping all the heavy rain, fortunately, between Hispaniola and South America. But don't talk to the folks here in Colombia. They've had some major urban flooding due to the fact that some of these bands of rain have really dropped a lot of moisture on some of these locations. Here's a look at aircraft data from yesterday. And I showed this to you in yesterday's video where you saw the strongest winds were with the mid-level center, and then we had very light winds near the center of the storm. That was yesterday. And then since then, planes have shown a lot more organization has happened under the hood here closer to the center. This was this morning, and the winds have definitely come up some closer to the center, but they haven't come up a lot just yet. And then recent aircraft data show the winds haven't gotten a whole lot stronger, but the amount of higher winds in the tropical storm force, levels of 40 to 50 miles per hour has expanded. So we are seeing the storm structurally get a little bit bigger, but near the center, we haven't gotten those strong winds to translate just yet. In fact, it really hasn't strengthened during the day today. The pressure's kind of held steady, but it is organizing at this point. And so it is getting its act together. Now, the steering here is very, very weak. You're going to see this area of dead steering right in here. In fact, in particular, there's absolutely no steering currents southwest of Jamaica and northeast of Honduras and Nicaragua. There's zero steering at this point. We've got a high pressure ridge over the Eastern Caribbean, high pressure over central Mexico, trough over the Bahamas, and we've got the monsoon trough down in here. It's stuck. We're nowhere to go at this point. Some of our models have tried to pull it northward along this ridge. The problem is the storm is not organized to where it can feel that tug. It's still kind of displaced. It doesn't have a way of escaping to the north. So what's going to happen is it's going to move into this area of very light steering, and it's going to just putz around for several days. Eventually, as this trough lifts out, we are going to get a way for it to get steered. But unfortunately, as this ridge here moves eastward into the northern Gulf, it's actually going to push the storm westward. And the farther west it goes, we get a little more tense about it in the United States. And that's not a great sign for Jamaica necessarily. Even though it pulls it west, that doesn't mean eventually it can't get slungshot back to the north and east. Eventually, I think that will happen. But the farther west it gets, maybe the better that ends up being. You can see here, looking at Tomerberg's site, the overall trend, this black line has gotten as far west as we've seen over the last few days, going all the way back to the 17th. So trend continues to be west and farther south in the shorter term. And now the mean of all of the average models shows it avoiding a direct hit on Jamaica, but still awfully close to the western portion of the island. A direct hit on Cuba is still looking quite likely. A track through the Bahamas is looking pretty likely. And impacts could still be felt in Haiti, in Turks and Caicos, in Bermuda, possibly on the southeast coast of the United States. And we're not even going to talk about what's going to happen as this comes north, but there could be some shenanigans after that. And you can see, looking at all of the possibilities, we still cannot rule out a potential impact on Central America at this point. I do think the Gulf is probably going to be fine. Western Cuba, the Florida Keys, and southeastern Florida, very, very, very low chance of any direct impact. Maybe we get brushed with some rain in southeastern Florida. But again, I'm not 100% confident in that part of the forecast to just say we're all clear. It just doesn't look very likely. Now, the Bahamas, things certainly are not going to look great at this point, especially the southeastern Bahamas and the central Bahamas. But we still have time for this to change. But Jamaica is definitely going to be impacted by this system, and perhaps in a major way. Same goes for Cuba and potentially the Cayman Islands as well. And just the fact that Haiti's got deforested land and mountainous areas here and a lot of southerly flow on the eastern side means we are likely going to have major issues with rainfall in Haiti. Now, here's where the models can get things wrong. The GFS model, the blue line, continues to be an extreme outlier to the right of everything else. The GFS has several ensembles, and if you average them all together, they take the track just west of Jamaica and into southeastern Cuba. However, the operational model is 300 miles to the right of this mean. In fact, it's on the very far right side of this envelope. So the model that a lot of folks have trusted for many years is a major outlier, and it just doesn't give me a lot of trust to go forecast what it's showing. In fact, you've got more models showing a potential impact just east of Honduras and Nicaragua than we do having a direct hit on Haiti and Dominican Republic. That doesn't mean we're not going to get by with nothing here. It just means a direct hit is very unlikely. The Canadian model, on the other hand, its ensemble member mean is taking this between Jamaica and the Cayman Islands and then recurving through central Cuba and then going right over Bermuda and then continuing on. But the operational model gets caught up in a trough that'll be on the East Coast and actually pulls the storm in kind of like a Sandy right into New York City. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, but that is a 9 to 10 day forecast. And right now it's way too early to trust that far out, but it is certainly an option we've got to take a look at. Here's a European ensemble, and more members than not showing a strong hurricane south and west of Jamaica, maybe flirting with Central America and then recurving. Very few ensemble members are threatening Florida, with one or two showing it close to the Keys and then pulling away very quickly. More so showing a threat to Jamaica, Cuba, the Bahamas, and maybe the western portion of Haiti. And certainly Bermuda's got to watch as well. The Google DeepMind, this one has been the model of choice this season. It's not a physics-based model. It's an AI model, but it has shown more than half the members indicating a major Category 4 or 5 hurricane. And it does have some solutions that eventually try to tug this towards North America, towards the East Coast, in particular the Northeast and Atlantic Canada. It's also got a third of its members that are bringing it up in the direction of Bermuda, and then a third that recurve from the Turks and Caicos or the Southeast Bahamas way out to sea. So not a lot of certainty once we get past day 5 or 6, and still not a lot of certainty in the shorter term either. If you look at these pressure numbers here, anything you see below 930 is Category 5, and almost half of these members, all 50 of them, are showing that. So more than 20 members out of 50 are showing a very strong hurricane, Category 5. And you just don't see that. So this thing has some very high ceiling potential with it. Looking at our latest operational models, aside from the GFS and the HWRF, which is a hurricane model based on the GFS, just about everything else is going by to the south and west of Jamaica. But you do see the curve that does occur on the southwest side of Jamaica, and it is not one to ignore if you're in Jamaica, especially on the western half of the island. We have several members that bring this back and very close to or even over the western portion of Jamaica before a recurve. At the same time, 3 of the 4 of our regional hurricane models are now bringing this on the western side and not bringing that recurve. In fact, they're showing a track going right over the hottest part of the Caribbean between Honduras and the Caymans and Jamaica, right in this area at about 80 to 82 degrees west. That is of concern, and we need to keep an eye on that. it's at that point, it's in the best spot it can be to not infect land, but it's in the worst spot it can be as far as intensity goes. And see what may be out of the realm of realistic forecasts, but one of our HWRF models now showing a 225-mile-per-hour hurricane. That's probably not going to happen, but Category 5 is certainly within reach, and I am going to predict it at this point. I'm not going to wait for the Hurricane Center to show that in 2 days. I think it's going to happen at this point. I mean, they're already going with a major hurricane, which I think is certainly a likely scenario. Category 4, I think, will be their next forecast, but we'll wait and see on that. But 3 of the 4 major hurricane models are going Category 4. In fact, high-end Category 4 or higher. Yes, this one is probably going way too high, but I'll show you why it is in just a moment. And you can see the hot water that's in place. If this system goes in this area, it's going to be under some of the hottest water that we've ever seen in the Atlantic Basin. We're talking numbers that are basically off the chart when it comes to the deep amount of warm ocean water that's in place here. I mean, this storm right now is over some pretty warm water, but it's got wind shear. When it gets over here, it's not going to have wind shear. So there's really nothing stopping it other than being over land, being over the mountains of Jamaica or over the mountains of Cuba that would stop it from strengthening. Here's a look at some of our regional models real quick. I'll show you the HAVS A from earlier today showing that the storm is going to struggle and is not going to look pretty on satellite over the next 24 hours, but it should start getting its act together Thursday night and Friday morning. And by just after midnight, this model shows it now becoming a low-end hurricane southwest of Haiti and southeast of Jamaica. You'll see it begins to turn left in the general direction of Jamaica, and it's already strengthened to a Category 3 hurricane Friday at the end of the day. And then Friday night, developing the eye and rapidly intensifying close to Category 5 strength, and then just basically stalled. And fortunately, it's not stalled over Jamaica, but this would be a very powerful hurricane at 930 millibars. And then it's got the storm actually losing some latitude as it basically parallels the coast of Jamaica by about 150 to 200 miles. Very bad news for the south coast of Jamaica, as you might imagine. But I guess it could be worse. A storm could be going directly over the island, like we saw with Hurricane Gilbert. But this particular model from earlier, showing 901 millibars and winds that are approaching 170 miles per hour. That would be one of our top 10 strongest storms in the Atlantic Basin. I don't want to spoil it, but the run after this and the run after that, we're showing a very similar scenario. Now, fast forward to the latest HAVS B model, and it too is showing struggling with the model. It actually shows it looking worse and worse this afternoon, but somehow making a comeback late tomorrow night and early in the morning on Friday. And then after that, beginning what is an intensification phase that is pretty extreme, showing a Category 1 hurricane here Saturday morning, going to Category 3 by Saturday night, and then Category 5 by the time we get to early in the day on Sunday, as it's farther away from the coast of Jamaica. This would be better news for Jamaica, but this is a storm that would be extremely powerful, and it's down to 913 millibars, and then 910 millibars, and then 902 millibars, 895, 884. This is in right there with Hurricane Wilma and perhaps even stronger wind-wise. 171 knots gives us a storm that is over 200 miles per hour, which is going to be potentially a record-breaking storm. Now, this is just one model, but the fact that I've shown you a couple of models, it's showing it consistently run after run after run, means we've got a very scary scenario. This is what Wilma looked like. You see, it was in the same part of the world, same time of year back in 2005. That was a hurricane season that had 4 Category 5s. This would be the 3rd Category 5 of 2025. Fortunately, the other 2 were not a big deal as far as landfall. That one did come a lot farther west. It hit Cozumel and Cancun. It recurved. It hit Southwest Florida, caused a lot of damage in South Florida, and then continued out to sea. The only other storm that has a similar potential track that I can think of was a November hurricane of 1932 that hit Cuba, and that was a Category 5. It weakened to a 4, and I think the track will be a little more similar to this one than Wilma. I don't think it's going to recurve so far west to where it's threatening the Yucatan and Florida. I think it's more likely to be a central Cuba storm. But, you know, we got a lot of time for this to change, and the reason that this storm is expected to be so darn strong is if you take a look at the upper level features in place. Once that trough moves out, we've got an extremely favorable environment for this system to strengthen rapidly. And if I pull up this sounding here, that just shows you what the upper level environment looks like. This is extremely technical. You can see that the wind shear in the lowest, I don't say the lowest, but basically in 25,000 feet of the atmosphere is below 10 miles per hour. And the strongest wind shear in the steering level in the steering is 12 miles per hour. And it's moving very slowly. Got southerly steering at 3 miles per hour, meaning the storm is stalled over the hottest part of the ocean. It's got less than 10 miles per hour wind shear, and it's not over any kind of land. It's in an ideal spot to basically just go crazy, to go nuclear. So that is a possibility that we're going to continue to watch here in the coming days. But in the meantime, we've got to worry about the areas that are going to get hit with the rain. And certainly Jamaica and Haiti are the two that come to mind. This is the European model. It is a threat to Jamaica, even though it stays south. You can see that the European model does not distance itself enough from Jamaica to not be a threat. In response to a trough that's moving in, it is going to recurve to the northeast, and the European takes the storm onto the western side of Jamaica at night, Tuesday night, while many folks are sleeping, as a Category 4 or 5 storm, and then continues and hits the south coast of Cuba, also as a Category 5 or 4 storm, just to the west of Guantanamo Bay Wednesday evening. And unfortunately, it's moving a lot faster and weakening by the time it goes over the southeastern Bahamas, but still a destructive storm at that point. Farther on, you can see that the European may not be finished with the track of the storm. It shows, let me see if I can get it up here for you. All right. It shows on Friday, Halloween night, the storm is going to be moving right over the island of Bermuda, which is a very small target, actually in the morning on Friday, as a Category 3 hurricane. At this point, it will not look anything like it did in the Caribbean, but it will still be a very quick mover. And then after that, something to watch in Atlantic Canada for Friday night and especially Saturday morning, as it may be coming up in this direction. Oh, by the way, a big trough in the east around Halloween night could bring some snow to the mountains of New England and some very strong wind as well. The other model that is showing a similar track is the Canadian. It's not as strong. It is going farther west and flirting with Honduras. And the reason I'm concerned about this being a legitimate threat is that the Canadian has shown this now for most of our models, and it is bringing the storm into the northwestern Caribbean. It does recurve it, but because it's farther west, it's actually going west of the Cayman Islands. It would threaten the Cayman Islands. It would threaten central Cuba. It is close enough to Florida to bring some impacts. It's close to passing over Nassau in the Bahamas, over Eleuthera Island, Cat Island. And then, unfortunately, because of that trough that I mentioned, in the eastern United States, it actually has interaction with that trough that basically takes the storm, and instead of kicking it northeast towards Atlantic Canada, it draws it back into the northeast. And that's exactly what we saw with Hurricane Sandy. And this would be Friday morning, Halloween day, bringing the center of the storm basically right over New York City and then bringing mountainous snow with it. This is awfully unlikely to have a forecast like this that's 9 days away actually be correct. But it is something that we still need to be watching. We can't just say that there's no way, there's no chance this will not affect the East Coast. It's just way too early to say. So that's just something we're going to have to watch. If you take a look at winds here, certainly Jamaica's got to watch out, because if the European is right, we're talking wind speeds of over 160 miles per hour on the western side of Jamaica. That would be catastrophic there. Even Kingston could see hurricane force winds depending on how this tracks. Southern Cuba will have extremely strong winds. The eastern Bahamas would have very strong winds. That is if the European model is correct. And then as we extend this on further, we can see Jamaica or Bermuda would have wind speeds of about 115 miles per hour, which would be their strongest storm of the year. And then Atlantic Canada, in particular, Newfoundland, would have winds over 100 miles per hour. And for those of you in Atlantic Canada, that's about 160 to 170 kilometers per hour. That would be Friday night and Saturday of next week. Here's the Canadian, not as threatening to Jamaica, but still something to watch. You can see it keeps the strongest winds south of there, but take a look at what it's doing here in places like Cuba and certainly Florida. It's got wind speeds over 100 miles per hour in Cuba. It's got winds of 60 miles per hour in the Florida Keys, 100 miles per hour in Nassau in the Bahamas. And then strong winds as well affecting Bermuda by the time we get to the middle of next week. And then, unfortunately, as this moves into the Northeast, we are looking at, with this particular model run, again, it's just one model run. It will change. but it is showing the potential for 90+ mile per hour winds across most of Long Island and all of southeastern New England, with as much as 115 mile per hour winds on the islands south of Massachusetts. Significant winds in Connecticut, Long Island, New York City, 60 to 70 mile per hour winds. Again, I really don't want to scare folks. I am going to show this to you as an option, but a lot can certainly change. Just know that I don't think we're finished with hurricane season on the East Coast, and this is something that certainly catches my eye, but a lot can change. The one thing that we definitely are going to see is heavy rainfall in the Caribbean. There's an extremely high chance of 8 inches of rain on the south coast of Haiti, Dominican Republic, and Jamaica as well. Let me actually move this over to the 12Z. You can see a 90% chance of at least 8 inches of rain. That's going to cause catastrophic flooding for sure. The chance for 15 inches or more of rain is also very high. Let me get that loaded for you here. It is 60 to 70% on the south coast of Haiti. In the mountainous areas, we see a pretty decent chance of heavy rain. The southeastern side of Jamaica, a very high chance of seeing rainfall amounts of over a foot of rain. That could be very bad. If you take a look at the raw numbers here, this is in millimeters, but over 500 millimeters of rain. That is about more than a foot of rain. In fact, we're probably talking almost 2 feet of rain in some areas. The latest GFS, or the latest European, has the entire island of Jamaica getting 500 millimeters or more of rain. That would be catastrophic for the island of Jamaica. So at this point, we have a lot to still figure out. It's still early to give you exact numbers. I'm here to show you some model simulations, some possibilities, but know that when I come back here tomorrow, I'm probably going to have some differences. We'll know more as we start to see where the storm exactly is going to try to go. Things are probably going to look different. If you're in the United States, I'm not forecasting a direct landfall anywhere yet. It's just something we have to monitor. In fact, I think if there's going to be anywhere that should watch it more closely because of the upper level pattern, it would be North Carolina on up the East Coast, not necessarily Florida, just based on the fact that by the time we get later into next week, it would be passing Florida to the east and may try to get drawn back in. But it's not highly likely. I'd say the chance right now is less than 30% of something like that even trying to happen. So we'll keep you posted on it. As always, if you want just the facts, what we see here, if you want to hear it from a meteorologist, if you want to know what's going on, then I urge you to subscribe and to come back and follow me here for more. I appreciate your time today. I hope everybody has a wonderful Wednesday. Thank you for watching. And I do want to give all the honor and glory to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for he is good. I am a Christian, and I end my videos with a devotional and with the word of God for the people of God. We go back to the Old Testament, 1 Chronicles 16:34, for this wonderful word. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endureth forever. The Lord is good. God is good, and he has given us Jesus Christ and given us mercy that endures forever. The gift of God is eternal salvation if you choose to follow Jesus Christ and you have, in fact, been given the gift of salvation by accepting Jesus as your Savior. And then not just accepting it, but continuing to live the lifestyle. No one here is perfect, but everyone is forgiven if they make that choice. It is a choice that you have to make. I hope it's a choice you make, and is one that brings me joy, hope, and faith in eternal life that is so much better than the life that we're given here on earth, which is relatively short. I hope you make that decision. And if you're struggling, you are not alone. Just know that. I'm happy to pray for you no matter what you're going through in your life. We're all going through stuff right now. There are natural disasters. There are things we cannot control. Just know that when I go out and give a forecast like this, I definitely think about the people who are going to be impacted, many of whom just don't have a lot financially, just don't have a lot on their backs. And something like this can just, it's crushing. And I totally understand. And I wish there was more I could personally do. But just know that I pray for these folks that God will still provide for them no matter what happens next. I hope you all have a wonderful Wednesday evening. I'll be back tomorrow. Have a blessed night. See ya.